Okay, we are recording. Hello there, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to join us. My name is Jeff Hendrickson. I'll be your facilitator today. I am a design thinking coach, mentor and facilitator. I've taught design thinking all around the world to some of the major corporations everywhere in every single industry that you can think of. We'll be joined today by Dr. Rado Kotorov, by Yoshiko Akai, and by George Poli, all members of this group here within Trendalyze, and I'll have them introduce themselves one at a time too. So Rado, if you would go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you everybody for attending. Rado Kotorov, I'm a co-founder and CEO of Trendalyze. I have my scientific background is in decision theory, which deals with the problems about how people use technology and in general make decisions. And I have 20 plus years of experience in the business intelligence and analytics space. I've been through the entire evolution of the business intelligence and have seen from the emergence of 4GL technologies up to in-memory computing and data visualization. And similarly, I've been through the AI evolution and seen the high and lows of AIs before and now. And so what we've adopted and what we've learned through this is a pragmatic approach where we are building technologies that try to solve problems that are pertinent today and solve them in a pragmatic way, but also doing an advanced R&D to solve the biggest challenges coming in the future.
Cool. Yoshi. Thank you, Rado. And we'll be circling back to Rado again because he'll be doing our demo for us. Yoshiko, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Yoshiko Akai. I am Chief Product Officer at Trendalyze. I am managing the product development and data science and data engineering teams. I have a background in product management and project management. I have been delivering enterprise advanced analytics solutions and products all over the world.
Cool, thank you. And George.
Yep. Good morning. Name is George Poli. I'm Chief Operating Officer, primarily focusing on commercialization. Have a long history working in software companies as well as professional services organizations, and lead all of our discussions with consulting partners as well.
Cool. Thank you very much. And just another quick little note, Rado and George and I have all worked together at a previous company too. So we're really happy to be working together on this and presenting this to you. So now I'm going to turn this over to Rado. He is going to do a short deck, and then he will give you a demo on a couple of different data sets, and you can see the power of this tool and start getting some ideas about how this might work for you. Okay, so Mr. Kotorov, Dr. Kotorov, I'm sorry, please take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for attending. I would go through a short presentation in which I want to explain why patterns in time series data are so important and so valuable in the new digital economy. And let me start with a little introduction about what has changed in time series data and what's so important in it, because time series data has been around with us for decades, but it has changed significantly and it has increased its value and importance in the enterprise. So we start with an analogy. The machine in the human body is the heart that keeps us going. And you're all familiar with the ECG devices that take the pulse and measure the movements and the heartbeats in the heart. And so what has changed in general in the industry today is that we're installing sensors and devices that collect the heartbeats of everything, whether these are engines, processes, or operations. We collect data on that. And knowing the good and the bad heartbeats is really very important and very valuable, because if we can distinguish them and if we can monitor for them in real time, we can actually save or make money or prevent significant events. And so let me move now and explain what physically has changed in the collection of time series data. If I show you this time series, which is collected on a seconds interval, it looks very generic and very few people can even guess what it is. I mean, it's completely doesn't have anything significant in it to identify. But if we switch the granularity to milliseconds, collecting 360 data points per second, we're starting to see very distinct shapes. And 90% of the people correctly can identify this time series as the human heartbeat. And what I wanted to point here is that you move to a particular level of granularity, time series become meaningful. We can recognize them and we can know how we can use those time series by their shapes. And if we go a step further and we start distinguishing the good from the bad heartbeats, like here, we're distinguishing the yellow from the red heartbeats. The yellow heartbeats are pathological conditions such as stroke or a heart attack. And once we start distinguishing them, we know now for sure which are the good and which are the bad and which are the precursors of bad things happening. And we can start using this information to monitor and to build more advanced predictive systems to detect events of significance. And the key point here is when we get in this level of granularity is that we're not only detecting markers of particular events and signals of these events, but we're also detecting causal relationships between markers and events that follow after the markers. And that's what makes time series data so reliable in generating predictions. I want to say that this type of activity is now available in all industries. Everybody is collecting and generates loads of granular time series data. In industrial equipment monitoring and in manufacturing, we have vibration sensors that very reliably help us identify when a potential failure of a machine would happen. In high frequency trading, almost all trades nowadays are being executed by machines that algorithmically detect heartbeats and trigger signals whether it should be a short or a long trade. In vehicle operations, we have installed CAN loggers in the cars and over 250 sensors in the engines that really allow us to do very granular engine diagnostic. But not only that, but also the ability to fingerprint the driver and do forensic after crash accidents. For example, a high speed with a sudden change of the angle of the wheel captured by the sensor reveal precisely who is at fault during an accident. In healthcare, digital health is becoming popular, being enabled by devices that collect the heartbeats of everything. And there are now remote patient monitoring devices for everything: diabetes, blood pressure, ECG, and etc. And it reduces the stays in hospital, and it does also a very significant prevention that saves lives regularly. In retail transactions, you also have granular data that allows you by minute and even seconds in some cases to detect changes in trends. And I want to point here that Amazon becomes so big because they were able to detect patterns and trends in the long tail of retailing, in those items that do not have huge volumes, but for which, if you detected a change of trend in one market, you could promote quickly the item in a different market and double the revenue from such items. In data traffic, probably the most wide applications of granular time series data is the use actually of the use of time series data and pattern detection for intrusion detection. It turns out that the signals often collected at nanoseconds, 9 digits after the seconds, reveal the very essential signature of a particular intended intrusion in a system. I also want to emphasize here that this is the realization of how valuable this data is, coupled with the huge data collection of it, is fastly driving the market. So we know the benefits of the business intelligence market. Once companies started collecting business data, we got the emergence of ERP system to collect more detailed customer data, more detailed sales data, and etc. and it grew up into a multi-billion-dollar industry. The analysis of this data saved companies millions and billions of dollars. And if we look, analytics correlates very closely with the accumulation of data. So in this case now, we have a 10 times faster growth of time series data compared to any other data, which allows some analysts to estimate that this market is going to be growing at 3 times the rate of the business intelligence market. And I want to point that the types of tools that emerge for analysis of different kinds of data are always different. What we do in Trendalyze to enable the analysis of these time series data sets is 3 things. The ability to mine the data sets and find domain experts to be able to find interesting patterns, because it's very important this work to be done by domain experts, because they're the only ones who can give meaning to a pattern. A machine can point you to an interesting pattern, but the machine can never provide an explanation about what this pattern is. So we've combined the human intelligence with the machine intelligence to facilitate the mining of those patterns. We also, at the core of our technology, is a motif search, or the ability to search for similar patterns or recurring patterns in the system, which is very important because recurring patterns typically point to things that we can improve and we can monetize. Recurring patterns also point to the causes of things that systematically occur over time. And finally, what we do is the motif intelligence, where we configure cataloging libraries meaningful patterns, and then we can configure them jointly into systems into artificial logical networks for prediction and real-time monitoring. How is our approach different? We're asked this question very much because there's a lot of discussions about machine learning, deep learning, and in general, the machine learning space has a lot of different ways of doing things. And nowadays, mostly machine learning is associated with statistical machine learning and neural networks, also sometimes called as deep learning networks. And very recently, it was identified, an article in MIT Technology Review, the Google engineers admitted a major problem with the neural networks that we have to be aware. That's not to say they should not be used, but we should be aware of some of the risks. And that problem has been that even when we train models, we achieve high accuracy on the training, but we cannot say if it will work in the real world. Now think about it. Would you go into an airplane, that's self-flying airplane, if you know that the system there is even a slightest probability that something may go wrong and it may misfire the prediction of something? A lot of it is written about that risk, and we are focusing research how to mitigate that risk. Following that, there are surveys by MIT Sloan that says that only 10% of the companies, because of that problem, reap ROI on statistical machine learning. And Gartner points out that 95% of the machine learning projects fail. So what we tried to do in our research is we tried to put the human in the loop, and that's what we did, and create a more human-like learning. That's why we faced on the recognition in the data of the shapes and having the human assign the meaning of the shapes. And what's distinct about human learning versus machine learning is that a human can recognize 2 different shapes immediately. I need to show you only once a wine glass and a teacup and explain to you the differences, and you would know it. I don't need to feed you with thousands of examples how to do that. And that way of learning is very reliable and very fast. And so by using the machines to identify interesting shapes and using the humans to give meaning to these shapes, we are in a position to deliver faster time to market learning, as well as more reliable identification of the things that are going on in processes. Finally, I want to say that the market is evolving and the analysts have recognized the importance of time series intelligence as a separate category from the business intelligence and from the traditional statistical machine learning. And we're very happy to be in a good company with notable companies out there in this category, being the number 2 after Microsoft, and being the number 1 actually for ease of use, listed as the number 1. And I would like to say and point that this market is particularly interesting because of the big differentiation between the clients. And it used to be like that 15 years ago, where every BI company had a specialty and was different. But as the market got saturated, the differences disappear. So we're fortunate to be in a market where the differences and the differentiation is still huge, and we're all trying to push the limit of how we can analyze and understand the language of machines by leveraging time series data. As I said, we conduct a lot of R&D and get grants so that we can move into the future and solve some of the challenging problems that I mentioned. You can see this research on our website. And we also publish books on for management on how you can leverage the data and the analytics to be more competitive and to monetize various assets in the organization. You can look at this, you can send us an email, and we'll send you the right articles and the right research if you're interested. And with this, I'll hand it back to Jeff. I want to say is that we are offering with Jeff a 1-hour design thinking session on how you can build a high-value time series application, monitoring and predictive application. And after Jeff, we're going to move towards a short demo.
Yeah, thanks, Bardo. That was great. So yes, on this 1-hour design thinking, of course, right now that has to be virtual. We can facilitate these through Miro. Essentially what you do is just reach out to us and say, I'm interested in that. Let's figure it out. We know that sometimes, and we've seen this a little bit as we're walking companies through this, where they say, it sounds really, really cool, but I'm not sure what to do. So we do a design thinking session like this, and now things become clear, and everybody starts to understand how they can use this and start moving things through, okay?